Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. Night Pod on this Tuesday night. We every time we go Tuesday or Thursday, things get all weird. So I just say prepare yourself for a weird pod.
Weird pod. I'm drinking non-alcoholic beer, Andrew. It's getting wild over here.
Get out of here. I'm drinking DPZ.
Dr. Pepper Zero?
Yeah, man.
Now, did you ever get into Dr. Pepper 10, the Dr. Pepper that was just for men?
I had it.
Yeah?
Didn't really get into it. I'm all in on the DPZ because they released a cream soda version and a cherry version
of DP.
Both are very good.
Now, when they say zero, that's zero sugar, right?
Yeah, zero sugar.
Do they pump it full of stevia, though? Because I don't like the way stevia tastes.
Yeah, I'm just used to it by now, I guess.
I'm a fan of xylitol. Give me xylitol.
Speaking of barfing noises, the Thunder won a game the other night against the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah, it was a great game.
It was. It was very fun. Honestly, like the atmosphere in the Paycom Center. What do we call it? The compound. What do we call it?
Yeah.
I don't know what we call it.
Well, somebody has a really good name, and I just forget it every single time.
Yeah.
I see you now because you have really upgraded your seats, and it's very easy to point you out to my wife, which I do multiple plays per game. I'll stand up right next to the TV because you can't see you in a half court set, so I can only point when they're in transition, and I'll just be like, "That's Andrew, that's Andrew, that's," and then you're gone.
It's crazy. Like the seats are unbelievable. Like when the guys check in, they're just like right there. And then when they're doing when they're reviewing a call, like the officials were like the seat that I had for that particular game, they were just like right there in my face. And so I can just listen to them like talking on their stuff. And it's just weird. It's like super awesome.
Now, is it pretty sedated on Media Row? I mean, is there anyone cheering in Media Row?
No, everybody's. It's fun because like I'm sitting there with Joe, like Royce. I've sat by Royce a bunch.
Yeah.
So it's like it's fun to just sit there and like we just like chat the whole time,
Yeah.
Like we just like observations that we have, Just
you should.
It's great.
Why don't you do a live pod during the game?
It is so loud is the thing.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
But it would be cool. We honestly missed an opportunity to do it. But I don't know if you could have done it last year with all the COVID protocols. Because there were like these big dividers between us.
It probably would have been like too loud in the arena. Like if you guys were just talking.
Well, we were talking. We were far enough away where you could talk. Because they pumped in crowd noise into the arena. So maybe we couldn't have done it. Because they were like still like playing music like defense. Yeah. It's like, oh gosh. And a lot of the time I just lean back and look at somebody like, who are they doing this for? Like, do the guys want this? Did they request to have the defense chance, brought to them?
It's cool. It pumps me up.
But the crowds have been good. Whenever they go on like a scoring run, like the crowd gets loud and it's not full, like especially against a team like the Spurs, like the crowd's not full, but they're still active and engaged and excited.
I don't blame anyone not wanting to spend money to go see the Spurs. Gosh, man. It's weird. The first half of that game, I was saying to myself, this is exactly the type of team that's going to beat OKC, get us back on track. Because they have they're always trying to win. They've always been trying to win. They're not going to cut any corners, and that's what that first half was like. I mean, they were getting so many steals. It felt like every single play was like a Derek White steal, and then it just all flipped. And I was reminded that this is a pretty bad team too, and it even more reminded me because now I'm starting to think. Of course, that game sent me into like a rabbit hole. Like, how good is this team? How good is this team? How good are they in reference to last year's team? All that. And I started to think, like, how many teams would SGA be the best player on that team? Like, if I just thought about it that way. And it's a surprising number of teams.
Yeah.
It's surprising. It's maybe half the league.
You want to go through it?
Sure, let's go through right now. Easy ones. Now Pelicans, I guess that's tough because, I'm sure, last year people would have said Zion for sure.
Let's start with worst net rating, and then go up.
Pistons, yes, easy.
No question. He'd be the best player on the Pistons.
Easy.
On the Pelicans with Fat Zion, yes.
With Fat Zion, but
with the Charles Barkley Shaq baby, who's not playing, yes. The Magic, yeah.
Yes, easy.
Houston, yep.
Yep.
Then you get to Memphis.
And that's where they are in net rating?
They're 25th in net rating.
Damn it, I should have picked them as the fake surprise team.
that spells fake surprise, does it not?
Oh my god. Oh man.
There it is.
I have regrets about that because I watched them. Well, they were getting blown out in that Minnesota game. Luckily they came back and won it. But they have not looked as dominant as they did in that first week.
Yeah.
I should have sniffed that out.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Leave Memphis aside. If people want to say Jaw's better, that's fine.
Yeah, that to me, we're splitting hairs. It's just like, what do you prefer? Like mega athlete versus like mega skilled, like better shooter.
Yeah.
Minnesota, I think yes.
Yes.
I just don't know what to think about Towns. Then you get to Atlanta, who's 23rd in net rating.
God, I didn't expect these many like goodish teams to be down here.
I think it's kind of interesting to walk through this exercise, like just to see who these like bottom 10 teams in net rating are, right?
Oh yeah, and that comes up when you talk about their strength of schedule right now, because I think one of the reasons people are freaking out, if they're freaking out, I'm not freaking out, but some people might be, is that they've played the 6th most difficult schedule so far.
Yeah,
meaning that. They played, and we knew going in it was going to be a tough schedule because you had Golden State, you had Utah, you had the Lakers twice, and according to Tankathon, they have the 7th easiest remaining schedule. But of course, that's all based on current records. So, we're getting discounted, or the Hawks are getting discounted, the Celtics are getting discounted, teams like the Pacers are getting discounted. These are teams going into the season we would say, oh, that's probably a game we're not going to be favored in.
Yeah.
But right now, our remaining strength of schedule is being pulled down by teams like that.
So, like, what are the Lakers? Like, what does that count for?
What do you mean? Well, they're above 500 now.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, that team stunk when we played them.
Dude, I have watched so many Lakers games. Did you watch last night? Monday night?
I did not watch the Lakers last night.
Oh, my gosh. So, in the third quarter, Russ is out, Rondo is in, and the Lakers had looked like trash for most of that game. They start going on a run, and they get up by almost 10 going into the fourth, and then Russ comes back in, and the game just kind of stops. Like, it's just kind of even until the 5-minute mark, and dude, he just starts turning the ball over, and that game should not have gone into overtime. There were so many opportunities for that game to not go into overtime. Luckily for them, they won, which they desperately need because apparently Austin Reeves and Rajon Rondo are going to be out their next game, and they might only have an 8-man rotation. Like, they are desperate for wins, so they needed that. Whatever. Okay, so go back to what we were doing. The Atlanta Hawks, let's say the push. If you want to say Trae Young's better, whatever. Fine.
Yeah. Charlotte.
I mean, again, if you want to say LaMelo's better,
he's better than LaMelo. He's better than LaMelo.
Okay. I agree.
Flat out. Like, I'm sorry.
I'm trying to be nice.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, my bold take, which I felt like it was dead in the water. Hornets, bottom 5 record in the league. I'm feeling a little bit better.
You got to feel a little
bit better.
Yeah.
They've lost 5 in a row.
They've really struggled. Really struggled recently,
and they actually are struggling because of something I'll bring up later when we compare it to last year's team.
Yeah, Mavs no, Boston no, Bucks no. Bucks are 19th in net rating. Holy moly! Lakers no, Pacers yes. Let's see. Spurs are 14th in net rating. Wow,
Yes.
they beat a middle of the road team. Yes. Kings, yes.
Yes.
Cavaliers. Where do you stand on the Cavaliers? I think yes, but
I would say definitely yes for right now. I mean, I think the world of Evan Mobley, but it's way too early to say he's better than
people are
SGA.
going gaga over Evan Mobley.
How could you not, Andrew? How could you not go gaga?
He's good. People are going gaga though.
I think it's warranted. And guess what? I don't even care that Colin Sexton got hurt. I mean, I care that I hope he gets better and everything. But
Yeah.
I think they're still going to be good, and I'm not backing down at all. They're still going to be the surprise team.
They get Okoro back. They fit better with Okoro back.
They do. I think they could be like legitimately good defensively.
Yeah. Jared Allen's been awesome.
He has been.
The Knicks, yes.
Yes.
The Raptors, yes.
Yes.
The Blazers, no. The Nuggets, no. The Wizards, we can say no.
Okay.
Clippers, no. Bulls?
I mean, Levine's pretty good.
Levine's good. Sixers, no. Heat? No.
No.
Jazz? No. Warriors? No. But that's a lot. You're right. That is a surprising number of teams.
Like 12-ish teams, which now thinking back to like our original question, like how bad is this team or how good is this team? It's just an interesting way to think about it, because it's like we do have a better player than over a third of the league.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of hitting me, because even last year we were saying to ourselves, like, yes, Shea's awesome, but like he can only do so much. Like Luka's first his rookie season, they weren't good, but they also weren't bad, because that was the year when they ended up with the 10th pick that turned into Cam Reddish that went to Atlanta. I don't think he's as good as Luka, but I am starting to wonder like how bad this team is actually going to be. But again, they're only 3-6, like big whoop. I'm not,
I was going to say
I'm not freaking out.
Their record isn't good.
Right.
And if LeBron James plays in one of those games, then
we're talking
2-7.
Yeah, or yeah.
So yeah, I just can't freak out about it either way. And also like something that's like, I think Josh Giddey will be better than anybody other than Luka on the Mavs.
What, this year or just in general, like future?
Just in general, like it's going to be really tough for the Mavericks to acquire a good player. They use all of their ammo on Porzingis.
Well, they use all their ammo on Porzingis, and then they just waste firsts and early seconds in like embarrassing fashion.
Really bad job in the draft.
And like the crazy thing is Memphis had picks like right next to them in all those drafts, and they nailed every single one.
They got the Josh Greens of the world. Have you heard the name Josh Green since the draft?
Nope. I hadn't heard Tyrell Terry since the draft.
He's gone. He's not even on the team.
Yeah. They just vanish.
I think I remember Bill Simmons having Tyrell Terry in like his top 10.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's had like a pod with KOC, and they were both like they were going gaga over.
They were going goo goo gaga.
They were.
They're turning little babies.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think a good place to start, though, I actually want us to talk about Sam Vecenie's big board first, because this will kind of lead in to our discussion, because Sam Vecenie released his first big board for the 2022 draft class today. And no surprises at the top. We got Paolo and Chet, 1-2. Then Jalen Duren from Memphis. Duren, right? It's not Duren. Jabari Smith, Auburn. Patrick Baldwin, Milwaukee. But the first thing that stood out to me, because he lists it and then he just has some notes. He said that Paolo and Chet are in a tier to themselves to start the year. I essentially have them as 1A, 1B in this class, although I don't see either right now as what I'd consider a typical number 1 overall pick in a normal draft class, which, is frustrating, because obviously you want to be bad in the year when there's a transcendent talent that everyone agrees from like the second they stepped into like a middle school court, like this is going to be the guy. That's not going to be this season. Doesn't mean there won't be an amazing player in this draft class, but it's kind of a good way to kind of set your expectations going into this college basketball season. There are things that could happen. Like one of these guys could just be so obviously amazing by the end of the season that you just feel great if you land that player. The thing
Mhm.
that kind of worries me though is what have we talked about like the last few draft cycles? If you're going to take a center, if you're going to take a big at
Mhm.
number 1 or number 2 at the top of the draft class, you have to be super confident that that player isn't just like, a Clint Capella, like a really good big who everyone likes, although he's not that great this year. Or even like a DeAndre Ayton, who I think people have come around on a little bit, but I still, you still question taking a center that high. Clearly, the Phoenix questions it. And so if Sam Vecini already doesn't feel like these guys are those type of transcendent big men,
Mhm.
I just, it's kind of like, oh, bummer. Like we need a big man, but also are these not the transcendent big man? We know
Yep.
Victor is next year. He seems to be one of those transcendent big men.
Seems like it.
I'm not upset
He
about it because it's so early, but at the same time, it's like it's all big men at the top.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think those are valid concerns. I don't know what the thought process was on Evan Mobley to start the season. Even going into the draft, there were people that were like, I just don't know,
Oh yeah, for
you know,
sure. And
about
and I
Evan.
do,
So
and I kind of, that may be me going gaga, but I kind of feel that way about him now,
yeah.
where he's like a transcendent center.
Yeah. Yeah, we just don't know. And I mean, there will be transcendent players like later in the draft too. You just have to nail it. Like the work the Thunder have to do right now, like behind the scenes is so like the weight is heavy because it's not only like develop the players you have, it's go find the next guy, right?
Yeah, I think
Like
there's
you
there's more pressure to not miss
yeah.
because this isn't Phoenix where like they completely botched a top 10 pick and it doesn't even really matter.
Yeah.
If that happened to OKC, like that's a huge deal if they botch
Yeah.
a top 10 pick.
Yeah, you can't do that. You absolutely cannot do that. And they did well in this last draft. I think Josh is clearly a good player. Like clearly a I think he'll be a starter. I don't know if he can be even like fringe all-star, but like I don't know that it matters if he is or not, but the fact that you think he can be a starter and has the size and the strength and all the passing ability that he's got. I mean, if he does develop a shot, I think he's got all-star potential, but we're a long ways away from figuring that out.
Yeah, yeah, that the Spurs game was kind of the first well, I guess the game before that as well, where his offensive limitations were really on display
Yeah.
for stretches of that game.
Mhm.
But he's 19. It's his first 10 games as a rookie. Like you don't really care because your expectations coming in were so low on the
Mhm.
offensive in terms of his scoring potential coming in. So I'm not, worried about it. But those first couple of games, it was like, oh my gosh, like by the end of the season, could this guy be scoring 20 a game like LaMelo was? I don't know if I feel that way anymore, but I do feel like he
Yeah.
could get to like, 13 to 15 per game in his rookie
Yeah.
season. That wouldn't be crazy. And that'd be awesome based on where we
That
were coming in.
that'd be amazing. I'd be surprised if he did it. I don't know that he'll do it this year, but I think that he has the ability to make the jump from year 1 to year 2 for just for something like that, where he's going to be able to have a year under his belt where he has had multiple reps against, all these teams, which I think is really important for him so that he can see the court, understand it better, understand who he's playing against a little bit better, and then come into year 2 and have like a good idea of how he wants to attack like each situation. And I I think that that's when we'll see. Like I'm just not really worried about his offensive production this season at all. I want to see growth. You want to see the potential shine through, but really this season is about like reps and like what like kind of like situational reps can you give him. And I love that Mark put him in at the end of the game and kind of let him create, that shot for Dort at,
Yeah.
at the end of that Spurs game. I think like those kind of like mental reps are really, really important. And, he's even if he just makes like the all rookie second team, and like people are excited about him, and if he doesn't even finish in the top 4 for rookie of the year, like I just don't really care. Like that's just not always even the best indicator of what people's careers are going to be. So
Yeah, we talked about Gary Neal was a first team all rookie.
Yeah,
back in the day.
Yeah, he had his moments, Gary Neal.
He did. Yeah, I mean with Josh, like you feel good because he already has an elite NBA skill, which even for top picks, like lottery picks, that's kind of rare in their
Yeah,
rookie season to already be showing an elite NBA skill.
yeah.
Like
Even
elite.
Sabonis, who became an all-star, like what was he elite at his rookie season? I would argue nothing.
Getting to the line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Avoiding the free throw line. Not using his right hand at all,
Yeah.
just like
But even
there
like
is. Yeah.
you look at last year, like guys in that range, like Isaac Okoro, for instance, like he came in marketed as a great defender, but it wasn't like he's instantly a lockdown defender coming into the
Yeah.
league. I mean,
His offense has a long way to go still. Like he looked pretty bad in summer league.
yeah. Even someone like Patrick Williams, who I'm still high on, but is out for the year, like he didn't come in with like an elite NBA skill. And then
Yeah.
for Josh to have that, and then to already be exceeding our expectations in terms of scoring and defense, like
Yeah.
you can't really complain that much.
Yeah. You listen to the Low Post that was released yesterday?
Yeah, I was a little upset because like he mentioned Giddey briefly at the beginning,
Yeah.
and then by the end it was like lightning round, only going to talk about him for a minute. It's like,
Yeah.
he deserves more than that.
He deserved more than that.
Come on,
They still had praise for him.
still had praise, but not enough.
Yeah.
I had to slow it down to half speed.
Yeah.
to get my fill.
Hey, at least Thunder fans could feel good that there wasn't like a full Şengün segment or something,
That's true, dude. I was looking at the Darko model. Have
Yeah.
you heard that? And
Yeah.
Şengün is number 1 right now among all rookies. He's if his season ended today, it would be like the highest Darko score of any rookie in like recent memory.
Wow.
Anyway,
that's wild. How you feeling about Jalen Green?
I guess not as good as coming into the season. I mean, he just looked so ready in the Ignite games.
Yeah.
In a way that obviously Kuminga didn't, but even a lot of the guys in the top 6 didn't. And so I kind of felt like right off the bat he's going to be like an 18 point per game scorer like Scotty Barnes is right now.
Yeah.
So I mean that's a little disappointing, but whatever. I just that Houston team, man, that is a true tanking team.
Yeah.
I'm really starting to wonder, can you tank without injury and or dysfunction? They haven't had injury, but they seem to have some dysfunction with Christian Wood.
I think there's dysfunction all around. I think that the guys they have are not easy to play with. Like that group is not easy to play with. Like a Jalen Green, KPJ backcourt is not easy to play with.
Well, Şengün's probably their best passer. Like if he could be their point guard, he'd probably do the best job. Like Kevin Porter Jr., they're trying to like fit him into that role. And he certainly had moments, but he is not a natural point guard at all.
No, he's not. And even like Şengün is like, he's still he's a secondary creator. Like they don't have anybody really.
They gotta put him at the nail, Andrew. Let him run it.
That's right.
But yeah.
Yeah. But that's never gonna happen on that team.
No,
all the shots are going to Christian Wood, Jalen Green, and KPJ. Like that's the team.
But you do need disgruntled vets. I think that's an important part of a tank because they sour the mood. That legitimately, if you want to complain about tanking and how it's not bad for the young rookies, like what would that really mean? It'd mean that they're being surrounded by vets who like don't want to be there and aren't like actively engaged, which seems to be much more of what's going on in Houston, much less what's going on in Oklahoma City. When Baze comes out and before anyone asks him a question, the first thing he's talking about is how much he loves Mike Muscala. Like it seems like such a good environment in Oklahoma City.
It is. It's hard to. It doesn't. There's everybody's in a good mood all the time. Like it doesn't really matter what's going on. Like a lot of that is the culture that Presti's created. A lot of it's the fact that the team, at least the guys at the top, are bought into what Mark is saying, and then that trickles down to everybody else. Where, like, if Shea believes it, well, then I have to believe it too, or if Muscala believes it, then I have to believe it too, kind of thing. And I do think that the fact that the Thunder are very like open and honest, and like it keeps those vets from like being disgruntled. Some like Favors, Favors doesn't want to be on the Thunder. Like, come on,
Right.
But I think they're very open with like what the plan is with him, just because. And I don't know that with certainty, but that's the way that's the way it's been with every other vet though. And so there's like, I don't know, they've done a really good job, and perhaps maybe the environment itself is worth like 6 wins. You know what I mean? The fact that like people aren't pissed off or like upset about touches or upset about minutes or whatever. Like maybe that's worth a certain amount of wins. That
everyone definitely
will fight.
Everyone is on the same page.
Yeah.
You just never hear like one peep, and like those Christian Wood tweets, like they're not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. Mm-hmm. Like, who cares? But we haven't had something even like half of that come out of Oklahoma City.
Yeah, it's the personality of the players too that they have chosen for this team as well.
Well,
like, I don't think they would have brought Christian Wood to this team. Well, like, I just don't think even if they were just like, hey, you can have Christian Wood on the minimum, I think they would say no thanks.
Well, dude, Detroit, like they could have had him. They knew how good he was. Like, he was getting like some all-star buzz last year before he got hurt, and they just let him go. And they could have had him for cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And they let him go. They would rather play Jeremy Grant double the money.
Yep.
Than have Christian Wood on their team.
Because Jeremy's a good dude. Like, Jeremy's great. And that kind of stuff really does matter if you're trying to build towards something. And like the problem, and I get it. Like, there's a lot of people that think tanking is bad. And I think there are some like bad-ish versions of it that look like this. Where, boy, Jalen Green better be a star. Like, that's like, those are the things that like eventually will lift you up and make all this stuff not matter at all. But like, you need to have the stars.
And maybe you could even argue, like, looking back now, knowing what we know, like the early part of Devin Booker's career could have likely been that. Like, people could have been diagnosing that correctly, because now, based on what we learned from that ESPN report, like the culture around that team was horrible. Not necessarily the players, but like all the staff and everything. Whereas you never would feel like that was the case in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
I mean, right.
Report's coming out tomorrow. Okay, real quick. I want to go back because, I might have disappointed some people. Oh, by the way, if there was a name that jumped out to me already in Sam Vecini's first big board, it was Patrick Baldwin.
Yeah.
And the reason I liked him was because he just sounds like a Thunder guy. He said, a lot of NBA evaluators like to bring up his weaknesses, saying he's not an elite athlete and doesn't have a ton of game off the bounce to be a shot creator. That sounds fine to me. He said his mechanics are pristine. He's talking about him as a shooter. His balance is awesome. Shooting is arguably the most important skill for players who aren't necessarily superstars. He isn't just a good shooter. He has a chance to be an elite one by the time he's 25. And he's 6'9". I left that part out.
I was going to say the size thing is that's the moneymaker, man.
Because if there's one thing I've noticed earlier in the year, it is that so many of these awesome Giddey passes are just going to waste. Just thrown in the trash.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
And wouldn't it be nice to have a 6'9" forward who shoots like 45% from three? Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. I don't know much about Baldwin.
I just told you all you need to know.
He's a wing for sure?
Yeah. Let me his wingspan. Let me tell you his wingspan. So he's 6'9", 6'11" wingspan. So he's not negative wingspan.
Ooh, baby. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. They need like an elite shooter.
That's so bad. So bad.
I mean, they are.
I mean, look at Muscala on this team. He's legitimately one of the best low-minute players in the league right now. And it's, of course, it's like a hot start or whatever, but he looks amazing on this team.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. It's wild what he did in that first half when he hit those 3 threes in a row. It's like, man,
he's been great.
What's going on here?
But anyways, to make people feel better, I went back and looked at Sam Vecini's big board for the last 3 years, okay?
Yeah.
I'm just going to read you the top 10. This was his big board 1.0. So it would have come out around this time in whatever year it was, okay?
Yeah.
All right. This one's actually really interesting. So this is 2020, last year's draft. Number 1, Anthony Edwards, Cole Anthony, James Wiseman, LaMelo Ball, Tyrese Maxey. He had him 5th.
Ooh,
isn't that crazy?
Guy.
Yeah. Denny Avdia, Teo Maledon, 7. What?
Wow.
Jaden McDaniels, RJ Hampton, Obi Toppin. That was his top 10 that year. So guys not in that top 10, Tyrese Halliburton, who had it 11, which I think is actually where he ended up being picked.
Mm-hmm.
Killian Hayes was lower than Teo at that time. Pretty interesting. Okay. 2019. So this is the Zion year. Top 10. RJ Barrett, Zion Williamson, Nasir Little.
Yeah,
Cam Reddish, Romeo Langford, number 5.
Wow.
Quentin Grimes, who did not end up being in that draft.
I was going to say he was in
number
this last
6.
Draft.
DeAndre Hunter, Keldon Johnson. That's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
To have him at 8. Rui Hachimura and Daniel Gafford. He had him at 10.
Wow.
So he didn't have, Darius Garland. I'm looking at some of the other names. Jarrett Culver, who ended up jumping. He actually had Darius Baisley at 23. That's kind of impressive.
Interesting.
His big board 1.0. Okay, last one. This is 2018, so this is the Luka draft. Top 10. Luka, DeAndre Ayton, Marvin Bagley, Michael Porter Jr., Mo Bamba, Jaren Jackson Jr., Miles Bridges, Colin Sexton, Kevin Knox, Bruce Brown. Outside of Bruce Brown, he actually almost nailed that top 9.
Yeah.
Of who would actually go there.
Yeah, that's impressive.
So actually going back,
where was Trae Young?
He wasn't even in, dude. So I control F'd Trae Young. He was not in his top 60 at that point. Oh wait, hold on. No, I swear, I'm control F'ing Trae. He is not in this list.
Wow. TRAE, not in it?
TRAE.
Man.
That's
wild,
quite that's a big jump to go from, basically a beyond top 60 player to be, top 5 pick.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. So anyways,
anything can happen, I mean, that tells you,
But also Sam Vecini has some really good picks in there. Some that were kind of surprising.
Yeah. Yeah. Sam's the best, man. He's
okay.
Best.
I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
For people who are watching.
Hey, while you're sharing your screen, before that, let's take a quick break.
Okay.
All right, we're back from that quick break. Alex is going to share his screen here. And before I throw this up, you guys, if you haven't gotten your tickets yet for the Down to Dunk night at the arena on Monday night, you've got to do it. Alex is about to hop on an airplane and join us here in Oklahoma City. It's going to be so much fun. I cannot wait for it. We're going to have a live podcast before the game. We're going to walk over to the game together. We're going to have lots of chants during the game that are going to be hilarious. We're going to take a big group picture at half court and do a half court shot competition. And you'll have a chance to win a
Thunder prize pack.
Great prize pack from the Thunder. So be there or be square. You can go find that link. Oh, what is it?
Nothing. Finish the read.
Just go find the link on the Down to Dunk Twitter page. It's the pinned tweet currently. So you better act fast. I was
going to ask you, do you know anyone who's ever gotten to take a half court shot in a real game, or like gotten a Thunder prize pack, like for one of their little trivia games or whatever they do? Anybody you know?
I know a guy who won the $20,000
Really?
for the mid-first shot competition. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
That's a dream. That's got to be a dream.
He put wood floors in his house.
Really? I think I would retire. Get out of this rat race.
I would. I just invested in NFTs, man. That's all I do.
Oh yeah, Andrew's a crypto bro.
Crypto, bro. Just throw it into crypto.
Yeah, he's gonna buy a couple Bored Apes. Okay, so I wanted to compare. If you're watching at home, you can see all of this on your screen. I wanted to compare this year's team to last year's team, because one of my things that I believe strongly in coming into this season was this team is so much worse than last year's team. So much worse. I really truly believe that coming into this season. And seeing them these last couple of days, it's like, is it that different? Like, am I watching a rerun of last season? So I'm comparing this year's team through 9 games to last year's team through 9 games. So the first thing up on the screen, which I will describe for the listeners at home, is the top 12 players in terms of minutes played on these two teams. And for those on YouTube, if you see make any observations, shout them out. And if I find them interesting, I'll read them out. But one thing that stuck out to me was last year's team. Of course, you have Al Horford and George Hill playing over 25 minutes a game. You have Hamidou Diallo playing 21 minutes a game. Kenrich Williams was only playing 11 minutes per game back in this early part of that season. And he played all the games. He played all 9 games. Poku was playing more games. Poku at that time, isn't that crazy? Rookie Poku was playing 16 minutes per game, currently only playing 14 minutes per game. That definitely stuck out to me because on the one hand, like Al Horford, George Hill, very good players. We basically replaced them with Josh Giddey and Kenrich Williams in terms of like the big minutes guys. I mean, Kenrich is averaging 21.7. Giddey's up at 29. Anything else stick out to you about the two lineups? Yeah, Justin Jackson was averaging 24 minutes a game, but he only played in 2 games of those first 9. Teo was he was playing 20 minutes per game last year, and he is not. Oh yes, he is. He's playing 14 minutes per game this year. It's just very interesting because Teo and Poku, you would say, were 2 of the worst players on the team last year. High minute rookies, and they're getting fewer minutes this year than they were last year. Now, obviously, some of that is guys like JRE, who's also now a rookie, getting 17 minutes per game. But anyways, it was just kind of interesting. So now I'm going to scroll down, and we're going to look at some stats comparing this year's team through 9 games to last year's team through 9 games. So on the right-hand side, you'll see 2021. I gave you the the value and then the league rank. So for instance, offensive efficiency, Andrew, terrible. Both teams. This year, we're second. We're the second worst offense in the league, 98. Last year, we were the second worst offense in the league through 9 games at 103.5.
Offense is down overall.
Right, but like compared to the rest of the league, this offense is just as bad relative as last year's offense was.
It's bad.
And by the way, quick tangent. Look at this. I made this for you. Bottom 2 offenses in the league going back a decade, because I wanted to see like how good could a team finish if they had a bottom 2 offense. And the best finish was probably Chicago in 2020. They finished 22 and 43, but that was 24th, which would have been equivalent to the 7th pick.
Yeah.
Now, Sacramento, they won 27 games. Like Philly has won 28 games with a bottom 2 defense. So I don't know if this is encouraging or discouraging, but this is just to show you what teams who have had a bottom 2 ranked offense have done the rest of the season. Most of these teams ending up at like the worst team in the league or like a bottom 3 team.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Back to this. True shooting down this year. Last year, they were the 20th ranked team, true shooting. This year, the 29th. which
Yeah.
if you've watched this team, like they're bricking so much.
Well, some of that's
This is
Dort too, right? Like Dort's had such a hot start last year.
Yeah, he did for sure. Going forward, it's going to be important to know that these teams basically had the exact same pace. They're not necessarily playing any faster. They're actually playing slightly slower than they did last year, but it's basically equivalent, 101 to 100.
Mm-hmm.
Free throw attempts per game. This was really interesting because last year they were 26 in the league, 19.9 free throw attempts per game. This year, not that much difference, 20.2, but they're at 16th in the league because the free throws across the league are down. But Oklahoma City has basically stayed the same. It's kind of encouraging.
Yeah.
Points in the paint. Points in the paint, basically the exact same. 43.3 points in the paint per game last year, 43.3 this year. And I'm thinking that is just all Shea because like this team has so many drives into the paint.
Yeah.
It's not, it has nothing really to do with like who the big men are, basically.
Yeah.
Fast break points, basically the same. Drives. Look at the difference in drives. Now, last year they were at 56.2 drives per game. That was good for second in the league.
Mm-hmm.
This year, they are first in the league at 70.2 drives per game.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Increased
feels right.
by 14. It does, because it's like everyone's driving.
Everybody.
It's like if it's not Giddey, it's Baisley. If it's not Baisley, it's Dort. If it's not Dort, it's SGA. Like every single player on this team is driving all the time.
By the way, are you pleased with Dort's finishing?
Well, I was as confused as Mikey was when you were talking about it, but then you had that stat about how he's had so many dunks, and like that
Isn't
has
the
to be
weirdest thing.
right?
I found that we were doing the Dream Team show earlier today, and we were looking at Dort's stats, and I saw it for the first time and just could not even believe it.
Yeah,
I could not believe that he already has more dunks this season than he did last season.
it's wild, and obviously that must be the reason because it's not like he's taken so many shots in the restricted area. If 8 of those are dunks, that's going to boost up those percentages.
It kind of surprised me too because that dump off to Dort from Giddey basically to win the game against the Spurs, he dunked that. And it was a little bit surprising because he just like jumped off 2 feet and just dunked it with 2 hands right there when it, is typically like a layup for him. So that was just interesting.
3-point attempts per game. Last year they were third in the league with 40 per game. This year they're 12th in the league, 37.7. Not that big of a difference. 3-point percentage, as bad as it's been, they were also pretty bad last year. They were 33.5 last year, 27th in the league. This year they're 30.1%, 28th in the league. Where that gets really interesting is when you look at the open three-pointers. So these are when someone is within, isn't it like 2 to 6 feet?
Yeah.
So 2 to 6 feet. How many open 3-point attempts do you have per game? Basically the same as last year. 14 attempts last year, 13.4 this year. But look at the difference in open 3-point percentage. Last year they shot 31.7%, which is terrible. That was 24th in the league. This year they're shooting 23.1% on open 3-pointers, which is dead last in the league.
There are guys though that are shooting unsustainably bad from 3.
Oh, I know. Like if anything, going through this exercise actually made me feel like this team is way more likely to be better.
They can play better. They can definitely play better because if you look at like the amount of guys that are shooting so poorly from 3, Poku 27%, Baisley 26%, Giddey 25%, Ty Jerome 25%, Dort 22%, Teo 13%.
Yeah, it's been brutal. And so
like
many of those
that whole group has the talent to be in the 30s, like all of them.
They do. Yeah, and like what Teo 3 hasn't been open or wide open?
It's disrespectful at this point.
To himself?
To Teo. The way that people are just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Do your thing.
Then you have wide open 3-point attempts per game. So this is when no one's within 6 feet of you. I had no idea that both years through the first 9 games, they were number 1 in the league. So last year, 25 attempts per game. This year, 21.7 attempts per game.
That stat is a really interesting one because you'd think like, oh man, they're wide open. Well, most of the guys that are wide open for a reason. You either create a good shot for a good player, or the shot's wide open because nobody cares.
Oh, I was hoping it would be like, oh, Shea is so good at driving and kicking, but you're like, no, it's just surrounded by terrible shooters.
I mean, honestly, there's
no, that's true. That is the reason. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, no one guards Teo. No one cares. No one's going to guard Lou Dort right now. Like, they just won't. They don't care.
Yeah. And their percentage on those wide open threes basically the same. 35% last year, 36% this year. Passing, I was like, okay, we brought Josh Giddey in here. We got Shea. I bet passing has shot way up. Passes per game, almost exactly the same. 294 last year, 288 this year, middle of the league. Potential assists. I was thinking, okay, here we go. 45.7 last year, 47.6 this year. Again, middle of the league.
Yeah.
Assist percentage. What percentage of plays finish in an assist? 57.6% last year, 55.7% this year. So it's like not really that much difference so far compared to last year's team.
Yeah.
Then we get to some defensive numbers. So last year at this time, through 9 games, OKC had the 11th ranked defense in the league. What is interesting is they have the exact same defensive efficiency as last year. 107.9 last year, 107.1 this year, but now they are 20th in the league because of the, everyone not being able to shoot the ball early in the season.
Yeah.
So they're technically playing just as good of defense, but relative to the current league, they are worse.
To the rest of the league, yeah. I read that stat on Slam and Jam where almost everybody has a defensive rating that's 105. Half the league does.
Right.
Last season there was nobody.
What is the criteria? Oh, the criteria for potential assist is when you pass the ball, and it would have been an assist if he had made it, right?
If they would have made the shot, yeah.
Yeah. Contested shots. OKC last year at this time, number 1 in the league. This year, number 2 in the league. They're contesting a lot of shots.
Effort stat.
More interesting, contested three-pointers. Last year, they were about middle of the league. This year, number 1 in the league. They contest 27 three-pointers per game, which if you saw my tweet about this, it's very strange because they're apparently contesting a lot of threes, but they're also giving up the 5th highest amount of wide open threes in the league. And there's been some theories. Now, Michele said that they might be pulling data from different sources. So they're kind of counting it differently. Another person said that contesting a shot is just running towards the person and holding your hand up. And even if that's beyond 6 feet, it might still be counted as a contest, which is kind of funny because it's like, well, what's the point? Why are we measuring it that way?
Yeah.
Michele was saying that it was Vantage Sports. So that was where we used to do pods, right? That they did a study and that the best way to define contested shots was running towards a guy, hand up within 3 feet. And I have no indication that that's what NBA.com is using. So that's one of the reasons why that stat might be weird. Steve Thunderfan, Stephen Dolan on Twitter, he was bringing up that Baisley has led the league in contested 3-point shots last year and this year, which is just kind of like a strange thing.
Shots that he's contesting the most threes?
Yeah, as a defender.
Yeah.
Which is just very interesting because it has to show something. Maybe it's showing energy,
Yeah. Also, good defenders often put their opponents in places where they can't shoot, too.
Right, true. Yeah, Scott Grossman on Twitter said the eye test says he's a step too far for rotations and ends up closing out late and lunging quite a bit. So he's trying to contest, but they're not good contests necessarily. Yeah,
I was going to say it doesn't necessarily. That stat's just confusing because it doesn't necessarily say that wow, he contested the most shots, cool. Most isn't always great though.
Yeah, because some
of the
other
defenders
stats
don't let people shoot.
Because they're obviously all lumped in with hustle stats. So you have deflections or loose balls recovered. Loose balls recovered, that's probably legitimate. That's probably always good. to be someone who gets a lot of loose balls. But contests, that could just be a random thing. I mean, it's hustling in some sense, but is it really an indication that you're good at defense? Probably not.
It could mean that you've lost your guy, and they have the ball, and you are just running as fast as you can to get to them every time.
You're like at the opposite 3-point line, just running towards the other 3-point line, and that's a contest. You're 20 feet away.
At least he's contesting, but
he's contesting.
You know.
This one blew my mind. So I was thinking they have no interior presence. Opponent restricted area attempts per game. Mm-hmm. Last year, through 9 games, 31.7 attempts in the restricted area, which was 4th in the league. This year, 22.4, 27th. In other words, they're not getting like demolished inside, even if that's happened in a few games.
Yeah.
And you look at the opponent restricted area percentage, and this year they're 13th. Like they're kind of middle of the road. And you look at who the team who's like one of the worst is Charlotte with Mason Plumlee. Yeah. And I forgot the team who's number 1. It might actually be or like 30th. It might actually be the Minnesota, who has like the highest opponent restricted area percentage. And they're both above 70%. I just thought that was interesting because I think of this team as just having like no resistance at the rim, but they're like fine based on these stats.
Yeah, they've got good point of attack defenders too that deter drives. Where like Charlotte, like who's deterring drives for Charlotte?
I mean, they got a lot of active guys.
They got active guys, but like head of steam, like you can get where you want to go.
Yeah.
It's harder with the Thunder to do that. There's also like a lot of like drive and kick stuff because those guys there is such a heavy responsibility on everybody to cut these drives off that there's a ton of drive and kicks.
Right.
That happen against the Thunder.
And then the last little category here, rebounding. Again, one of those things I was like, oh, that must have dropped off. Defensive rebound percentage, basically the same as last year. They're middle of the road. Offensive rebound percentage. Last year, they were worst in the league. They only collected 20.1% of available offensive rebounds, worst in the league. This year, 24.6%, which is good for 22nd in the league. Which, Bays has been good rebounding this year. Giddey's obviously been a good rebounder.
Yeah.
But you think about last year and you're like, I guess Moses Brown wasn't playing at that point, but Al Horford, you're thinking, oh, well, they must have been better.
Favors is averaging, how how many offensive rebounds he's averaging per game? Favors.
What? Is he averaging like 2?
2.3.
Wow.
How many defensive rebounds? 3.8. Like it's almost the same number of offensive boards. I mean, yeah, you go between, Favors is 2.3, Giddey is 1.2. And I need to figure out how to find this stat. Maybe, I don't know who I can ask to figure this out. But that 1.2 feels like those are only his shots. He's always rebounding his own misses. Always.
Yeah.
Jerry is 1. Isaiah Roby, when he's played, which has not been much, is 1. Baisley is at 0.9. Kenrich is at 0.9. Dort's at 0.8. I mean, all that adds up. There's not there's not a great rebounder on this team, but there's a bunch of decent ones.
And that's why, so going through this exercise, I went in it thinking I'm going to come away thinking that this team is obviously playing worse than the team who started off 5-4 last year. Mm-hmm. And in some ways they are, shooting is obviously down, but I came away from this thinking this team's actually better at some of the things I thought they were terrible at. And there's a ton of room for growth as far as their shooting is concerned.
Yeah.
Which makes me think that is this team not that much different from last year's team? Andrew? Andrew?
I think that they are. I think they're younger, which matters.
They are younger, but they're not leaning into it the way that even they were leaning into it at the beginning of last season. Like when we talk about those Teo and Poku minutes, they could, for a team that's this young, their minutes distribution could look a lot younger.
It could, and I think it will. I think that things will. I think they're going to shuffle some of the G League guys back here, and I think you're going to see some Trey Mann minutes. I think that's going to happen. I think you'll see some Vin Krejci minutes. I think you'll see more than the 5 seconds that you saw.
What about Aaron Wiggins? What about Aaron Wiggins?
Yeah, Aaron Wiggins is going to have his time. I have zero doubts about that he will have his time with this squad. So,
and eventually there's probably going to be like an injury, like even if it's just like for a week or two, like
there'll be
everyone's healthy right now.
They'll stop playing Mike at some point. That will happen. So, I mean, my guess is that they will lean into how young this team is, and you'll see, 3 20-year-olds and Teo, Poku, Trey Mann with 19-year-old Josh Giddey, 21-year-old JRE all playing together.
Yeah, which would be nice because
that'll happen.
I mentioned earlier about how, like, look at all these teams that Shea would be the best player on their team. Like, look at the standings now. I feel like OKC is better than Houston. I know they blew us out by 30 points, but like,
yeah.
And if they're playing like this, like I would expect OKC to finish ahead of Houston. With everything that seems to be going on in Houston, it feels like that's more volatile than what OKC has going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, to me, they just need to try to finish in the bottom 5.
Yeah, and then the Pelicans, who we play tomorrow on Wednesday night.
Yeah, Wednesday night.
They are terrible.
They're real bad, man.
Oh my gosh, dude! I was thebirdrights.com, which is a blog, Pelicans blog.
Mm-hmm.
They had I was reading this post about, yes, it's terrible right now, but here are some things we can be hopeful about. Certain players who are playing well or whatever. And then they had a list of all the teams since the playoffs expanded to 16 teams who had started off 2-8 or worse and made the playoffs. And it's a list of about 15 teams or whatever. I'm going through it, and I realize that only one of those teams is in the Western Conference. It's like all the other 14 of the 15 teams were in the East.
The West is brutal, man. It continues to be brutal.
They were doing it as to give their fans hope, but after I realized that, I was like, oh man, the Pelicans are so screwed. I don't know what they do.
They're absolutely screwed.
And they're going to get a high pick, and they'll get another young star to bring in,
and they'll screw it up.
That
star will be somewhere else. All of this it just emphasizes over and over again how important ownership and management is. It really absolutely matters who is running the show and how it's being handled. And being process oriented matters. Look at how they've jumped. It was a year ago that they extended Steven Adams.
Yeah.
They decided okay, this is going to be our guy. We're going to get him. And it wasn't a secret that David Griffin had been trying to get Steven Adams for several years. And he finally got him, extended him, and moved on from him. And then got Valanciunas, and then extended Valanciunas, and is Jonas Valanciunas the future center of the Pelicans? I think if you're a Pelicans fan, you kind of I don't know. What are we doing here? What's going on? What's the plan?
Well,
there's no real plan.
The argument is that he's on a very tradable contract now, which I suppose, but how many teams are really out there looking for center? I was trying to come up with trade partners for Yusuf Nurkic. And
it's
it's not a super long list. The best trade I could come up with. What do you think about this one? Let me run this by you.
Okay.
Nurk to the Charlotte Hornets. We just talked about how they're terrible inside defensively. For Kelly Oubre. 6'7" wing.
That's straight gross.
Trailblazers desperately need a wing because their 4 best players are guards.
But to Kelly, the book on Oubre, man.
I know, but we'll talk about it on Friday because the Portland Trailblazers are the Wheel of Fandom team.
Yeah.
And they have so much going on. We got the Neil Olshey report on their Wheel of Fandom week. How lucky is that?
I don't know if it's lucky or not.
I think it's pretty lucky.
Oh man, if you haven't listened to the Saturday Slam and Jam pod, be sure to subscribe to the Athletic NBA show. Alex and I do a show every Saturday for the Athletic NBA show. It's been very fun. If somehow you listen to this and you haven't listened to that, you should go back and listen to our OKC episode that we did 2 weeks ago. Also, this past Saturday we had Tass Mellis of No Dunks on, which was super great. He was awesome. Like, he was really like gracious with his time, and like took time to like chat with us afterwards, which was really fun. Just a good dude. So that was really fun. So be sure to go listen to that. Okay, Al. The next time that I see you, it won't. Well, I guess it will be digitally, but the time after the next time that I see you, I'll see you actually in person, which I'm very excited about, because it's been literal years since we've seen each other in person. So
that's true. Doesn't feel that way.
No, it doesn't. I'm excited though. That should be really fun. So be sure to be there Monday night. It's going to be super duper fun. And it's also good to know that like we're going to go watch a team that doesn't absolutely stink, because when the season started and it was like, well, we're going to have this event where we go to a game. And, that should be fun. We get to see that fiery Heat team, getting people all messed up in the NBA. All right. Thanks so much for listening to our show. Let's see. Let's go to the stream. Night Pod. We have Unhandy Train, No Limit, Crimson King, Tyler Field, Nate Sanders, Thunderfan00, Travis Vogel, Momar, Kurt T, Twice Scott. Different crowd for the PM pod. Lawrence Field, Nate Sanders, Augusto Sarmento, Cody McChicken, Joseph Dieterman, Jake Arndt, Simon Shin, Grant A. Nichols, Winskill 1969, Alex Fuller Jack, what's up, dude? Yanni, Andrew Lindgren, Tanner Blosser, Game of Thunder is in the chat. Thanks so much for joining, everybody. Jesse Smith, Miguel DeBella is here as always. Thank you, everybody, for listening, for joining in on the stream. If you want to join in on the stream, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com, search Down to Dunk, hit subscribe. Zach Vobernick, let's see, No Dunks with a nice shout out for the Saturday pod. Yeah, they've been shouting out the Saturday pod like the past few weeks, which has been very nice. It's a huge deal. Frank Turman, David Cook, Mad Monk, thanks so much for joining, and we'll talk to you guys again on Friday.